That's what I was talking about too. So, but we'll get to it. So let me get this started. No, David took the night off. Hey, listen, he would have been here if he knew you were going to be here. I didn't tell him because I knew you'd be shy, and I'd have to repeat everything anyways. So. Yeah, let's go.
I learned to stay strong.
I'm gonna get to it. Just hang on a second.
Grinding all day, you know it's game on. My skin is thick, yes, tough.
Stay
alive. Ain't gotta look nowhere else. All of this greatness inside.
Look, Dave. It stops all by itself. You don't have to turn it down. So we're going to talk about that because that's something interesting. What people hear and how they listen. Episode 37. What the for? Yeah, it's going to be a little awkward for y'all. Not for me, though. Because I've been talking to him for a long time. I'd like to welcome a very special guest of mine, Mr. Fourman WoodFurn. He's moves very quick, and you won't hear him because you don't have the special headsets on that we do. So I'm going to try to help y'all a little bit with this. But he has a story to tell, and I think it's pretty interesting. So I thought I'd bring him on. Today I handed a key over to a business that he used to hang over. And he has not hung over it since 2011, was it? 11, 10. 10 you were up, right, I understand. Hang on one sec. 10 you're up, and then 11. So by the end of 2010, WoodFurn, hang on. By the end of 2010, he was taken down. But he's been with me ever since. He's been in the warehouse, shining light. He has overseen good and bad of the company. Is that fair? Yeah, I agree. He says it's fair. What would you say was the greatest asset, Foreman, of the local business? Absolutely, people. No doubt about it. That's right. Recruiting was important. And that's what he keeps talking about is, the people, he stood over the doors. He watched everyone come in. And he could tell through the step of a person whether or not they had the vibe that fit the passion that was the what for. Yeah, it sounds a little crazy. I imagine that without the success behind you, a lot of them sound a little crazy. And I certainly do not have the financial success to back up some of the great life lessons that we've learned, huh? But we certainly got the scars, don't we? Yeah, he went up there as I was a franchisee, and I started in 98 as a franchisee to a larger corporation. And then that corporation went away, and I was not considered an honored debtor. And so we lost everything. And I opened up the store that Foreman became a part of in 2009, 8, 9. As the receiver of the larger corporation was telling me that I was not considered an honored debtor, even though I fit the mold in every aspect. But our furniture at that time did not have serial numbers on it. And because of that, he was able to say that you could not track the furniture, so it was unpayable. And I lost everything. We had to open up the store that he took over, but I didn't own the name, would you? So I put Foreman up there for Wood for You. As the receiver began to turn his eyes towards me and us. Tried to shut us down, didn't he? That was a war in 2010. From then to now has been a journey, huh? And today looks like a loss if you really look at it. I mean, from the world's perspective, there's people out there just gossiping away, both in the vintage world and in the furniture world that we were talking about, manufacturers and retailers and haters and lovers and people that just love to gossip. And so, it got me thinking, because I've been around a lot of people, and Foreman has certainly seen those that have come through the doors, every one of them, haven't you? He's lit up the doorways for a lot of years. I mean, for a short amount of time over the door. But Foreman became a symbol for me. Yeah, became a symbol for me about life lessons, about digging in, about when to back up, when to move forward, when to listen, when not to listen, when to take your path regardless of the naysayers, when to take another path even when your mind's telling you to go right, you need to go left. How do you know? How do you know which way to go? It can become very difficult if I get this brain. 4 sometimes makes better decisions than me. Yeah. You know why? Because he's steady. But he saw a lot of people over us. It's a lot of people come in and out. Shoot, over that 15-year span, when we ran it, I don't think we turned over 2 crews in 10 years. Once he was hanging up in the back at the new location, starting in about 2015. I just said it. It was early 2015. He wants it to be very specific. He was hanging up in the back, and so he got to see a lot of that. He got to see a lot of what worked, a lot of what didn't work, and we went through probably 4 or 5 crews. And I think that was what I learned the most of in closing this store, was you can delegate the task. You cannot delegate the responsibility. And then I learned something else about me in closing this. That for all the leadership skills I have and all the whatnot that people say or see in people like me, there was a glaring weakness. And my weakness has been the inability to shake those that tell me clearly what I'm worth. Blood, not blood, doesn't matter. There's nothing specific here other than the employees. Basic business principles were violated, yet we were smaller, and I was trying to learn to be softer and kinder, and chaos erupted. And so I would change out the crew because there were no standards, or at least no standards that were being held on a daily basis. And yet I walked in that store, saw that, and then walked out when I should have made a move. That was probably my most glaring weakness. I'd like to apologize. Because Four and Would You have been very good to me and my family, and have meant something totally different than what a typical retail store stands for. It was never about the almighty dollar, and I think that isn't the healthiest business concept to have, and I'm good with that. I'm good with not being the best business person. I gave too much when I should have pushed back. I pushed when I should have gave. I made decisions that were wrong. I made some very dynamic decisions thanks to intuitive thoughts from things bigger and better than myself. And the end was something where I delegated the task and the responsibilities and had lost peripheral vision of that company because I was pushing on another company. Should be fear and panic setting in, huh? There's not. How do we walk with this sheer joy even when everything's collapsing? It's tough. It can get raw. You know, I jabber a lot, and I enjoy it. I enjoy having a good time. You don't talk so much, but you're an awesome guest. I'm honored to be with Fourman WoodFurn. I like saying his name. He'll be with me for a long time because he'll be a great reminder. Because there was a lot of quality that was done there. This industry was and has been on the decline for quite some time, and that's where the vintage industry came about in 2015, and that was due to desperation initially. And then when I got into this industry, I was really amazed at the ugliness of local to local. The unwillingness to sit down and talk out issues. And I think that says something about us, and humanity. It says something about me. Because you were involved in some miracles. I mean, we went toe-to-toe with Books A Million. They flew down all their fancy attorneys. That was a great, great story. And there was powers greater than myself that were involved in that. And there's no doubt. Because I couldn't have done what happened. And then we moved, and we had to find a place in 21 days in an area that was a booming area and very expensive. And we couldn't afford typical rent rates. Then we had to get re-upped. And I was ready for a war, and there was no war. But it was declining for me, and that's my attention was elsewhere. And I was good with that because it was time for a change for us. What I wasn't good with was the unwillingness of people in life, and I'm not talking about would you at all, but in life to sit and talk and listen. The ugliness comes out so fast. Where does it come from? I tell you, for me, the anger, there's always fear behind it. It's two things for me. I've said it before. I can't say it any other way than what was taught to me. It's fear of losing something I have or not getting something I want. So if I'm okay with not getting something I want or losing something I have, I don't walk fear-based. It's pretty cool. It's really that simple for me. That does not mean that I walk in a bubble and that there aren't moments of, oh my gosh, because there are absolute panic moments. But I find that's when my eyes start drifting. I start looking at the storm. I'll sink quick on my own devices, left to my own devices. And that is my own skill set, this brilliant brain It's a joke, people. Relax. I know what I have. Thank God for good self-reflection and the ability. I was talking to somebody today, and I remember I might have got my age wrong, but at 9 or 10, I was a habitual liar. We didn't have a lot of money. And so I would go to school, and they would be talking about the movies or something like that. And so at homeroom, I would listen to the movie, and by second period, I could tell the movie like I'd been there. And it just became a way of life for me. And it's sort of interesting when you talk about, childhood and the, 0 to 8, you learn 80% of who you are. And then people tell you, I am not talking specific, so relax. But I am talking my life experiences. People tell you to let that go and don't do that. But it makes us who we are. And I think that we avoid conflict because there's pain in there. But dadgummit, pain is where my healing is planted. I cannot plant this seed of healing, in a soil that isn't toiled. And that may be a parable to people, but it's just sort of how I have trained my whole life. And I have a biblical background, and there's a lot of parables in the Bible, and I like them. And so as I got into training in my mid to late 20s, all through my 30s and 40s, and as the corporation grew, I did not own it. I was a franchisee. I owned one store, and then I ran with some other people. I ran the corporate side and did some training on the franchising. So we had grown 40 plus stores. I don't know. And we had numbers, but other people would drop off. And so to be honest with you, it was really funny. There was a time that me and Mr. B, one of the owners, were sitting in Chicago, and there was a company that was looking to buy out this corporation that I worked with. And we were sitting at this big old round table. I mean, all these guys were suit and ties, and Mr. B's a jean wearing. Now, don't get me wrong, he had polished shoes. Now he had his wingtips or whatever they were, and they were polished, and he had his nice belt on, his button-up shirt, but just simple. We were just simple blue collar, hardworking people. And they took us around their warehouse, and it was just absolutely. This was back in the early 2000s, maybe late 90s. I don't remember exactly, but it was somewhere in there. And they took us around their warehouse and distribution center, and I mean, I ran the distribution center for our corporation, so I knew the size that we sent out. They took us their little staging areas, and they were bragging, and we were like, me and Mr. B are sort of looking at each other, and I'm like, you couldn't fit a quarter of our trucks in here. So we knew we were pushing some furniture out. Now, profitability is a whole nother thing. So they ran some really good margins, but they ran off of a lot of what you see in the vintage store that I'm in. They had some beautiful layouts, and they did that. And they started popping stores near every one of our stores. Many of them were in every town we were in. But before I get there, I'm sort of digressing. I'm drifting. We were sitting at the boardroom. I mean, this fancy table, and it was big and long, and Mr. Pat was sitting down there, and I guess some attorneys, I don't know who they were, press release, I don't know, a couple other investors, I have no idea. And me and Mr. B are sitting there, and there's not a paper, and they got paper strawed out and all these folders open, and we're just sitting there. And Mr. B's just sort of rubbing the table. And he said, well, Charlie, he said, what's your per square foot sales? we had no freaking idea, man. So he rattled off his per square foot sales, and they were just bragging about this and bragging about that. And Mr. B taught me a lot. He was a quiet man when need be. He was very good at knowing when to be quiet because he was taking in information. And he always taught me that he who speaks first loses. And I actually saw that work many times in his negotiations. He was a master negotiator. I mean, master. He was not perfect in all ways, but Man, when you got him into negotiations, he was patient and slow to speak and slow to move and slow to wrath. He took nothing personal, and he just squeezed and he squeezed. And there was one time that I am getting around because I'll get back to the corporation in Chicago. But there was one time that he got a really good deal. It was my store that was getting opened up, and he was negotiating it, and I was there with him, and I'd had a little say so, but I was like a little pipsqueak. These two giant warriors. The man that was the landlord of this beautiful center down in Bradenton, and it's open to this day on Cortez Road. And Mr. B were talking, and we were standing in the store, and I want the store so bad. I'm 26, and I'm hushing, and we'd talked in the van a little bit. I'm hushing. He'd kicked me under the table a few times before, so I was learning to shut up. And they weren't looking at each other. They had open stance. They both had their arms folded, and they were looking out forward. And the gentleman, Mr. B, was a pretty big fella, tall and of good stature. He snatched furniture around for a lot of years. And the gentleman was standing beside him was just a beautiful young gentleman, older, much shorter, and of different ethnicities. And it was a neat culture. And they were talking, and he's looking out this way, and Mr. B's looking out this way, and they're standing back beside each other, and I'm over here watching both of them, and I just want them to turn and look at each other and figure it all out. But they're talking, and so I'm listening. And it was slow and steady, and he offered a couple things, and Mr. B took a couple things, and they pushed back and forth a little bit, and we got to the walls and the excess monies for the build out, and all the minor things that you'll negotiate in any contract. And whatever it was that he was asking, I think he might have asked for new carpet. Whatever it was, Mr. B was the kind of guy that he was relentless. I mean, if you gave an inch, he pushed up, and he did not back down. You gave that. And now he's going to, and he was very good at it. Not ugly. It was just good business. It was good negotiating. But this gentleman was no slouch himself. And he sat there, and Mr. B, whatever it was that he asked for, the gentleman, I'll never forget, he said, Charlie, he didn't even look at him. He said, Charlie, don't squeeze me. Mr. B sat there with his arms folded, and he's like, all right, we'll take it. Something along that lines. We got back in our little Astro van, and I'm like a little kid just bouncing all over the place, man. I got my building. I'm like, he got a dynamic deal. I'm like, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? He said, well, now he didn't say this right away, but we had a long drive home, and you think of jabber now, give me a store at 26, 28, whatever I was. It took me 3.5 years to pay it off before I could ever own it. But still, there was hope and a dream for a little custodian from Duval County School Board. And Mr. B, I finally peppered him enough, and he said, well, Brett, he said, you squeeze a man till he turns a little red, and then you just squeeze him just a little bit more. He said, and when he said, Charlie, don't squeeze me no more, we were done. And it was two pros going at it. And this is the beauty of compromise. And I will get back to the boardroom. The beauty of compromise is nobody's happy. And we forget that. I have a right for this, and you have a right for that. And I heard recently, your truth and my truth. Absolutely not. There was one truth, Foreman, one truth. Now, there were two perceptions, and if we throw you in the mix of it, there were three perceptions. Yeah, whatever. Well, you could tell them, but they won't hear you. What he's talking about is the inability to hold the standard. And that's true. That's absolutely true. Well, it's not the inability, it's the unwillingness too. And I think unwillingness gets hid in inability very, very quietly. People don't mind not having the ability to do something, but they certainly don't want to have the unwillingness to do something. And they will fight tooth and nail. I have watched people destroy. I have been involved. You know, I haven't always made great choices. But I think the one thing that I had that is one of my superpowers, because he's whispering it, is yes, he is. Yes, he is. Listen, you're not here. You don't have the special headset on, okay? Don't judge us. Foreman, tell him. Yeah, what he said. Boom, kid. Yeah. Joe Rogan, that. Joe ain't got no 4. Oh, he has real guests? You don't think 4 is a real guest? Well, then you're missing the point. Because inanimate objects, I'm not calling you that, Foreman. Not at all. I'm saying if you were an inanimate object, if you were an inanimate object, it could still be a shining reminder of what to or not to do. I'm an object person. That's the last key to the store. I don't know why I keep it. It's not for morbid reasons. Now we're going to get back to the boardroom. So we're sitting there and they're asking, that's called drifting. Hang in there. If you watch enough of them, you'll get the hang of it. It's okay. If you like it, hit like, share, and subscribe. Tell your friends, comment, get engaged. Find me on TikTok. We have a lot of fun. So we're sitting there at the boardroom, and they're asking the square footage sales and rent rates and all this other metrics that retail uses to determine whether or not, you were viable businesses. But we knew that we were pushing out furniture. So Mr. B was like, I don't really know that. He knew his average sale, and they gave their average sale. But Mr. B never gave his average sale. He just said he knew it. And then they spent the next 30 minutes trying to get it out of him. And Mr. B, as always, is an honest man. And he did say, I will get back to you. I just got to go and verify. And he absolutely did, because he didn't know every store. So it was the truth. And there were a lot of stores. And so we got back, and he was in his office pulling out papers. And, I was busy doing my thing. And we got to chit-chat from time to time on the phone and in person. And we came to realize that we were whooping their ass. And then they came, so Mr. B and his partner had turned down the offer from them and another group or what have you, and proceeded to grow. And so this corporation, and this was their biggest mistake, ego. They thought they didn't know what they didn't know. They didn't know the what for, Foreman, because we didn't have them fancy computers. We had computers. They just weren't fancy. We didn't look the part. But they weren't paying attention to one thing. All the people that were walking underneath signs like Foreman. No, you're the only 4 ever. But it was that color. They were your brothers. They were your kin. Can we say that? Thank you. So they were kin for a long time. From there, they opened 11 stores within a mile, 2 miles or in the vicinity of our locations. And they were the high end, and we were the stack it high and let it fly. We were the Walmart, and they were the Dillards. I don't think Walmart and Target were even close. And they thought they were going to crush us. And they didn't realize how skinny we would go, how our owners would go. And it ended up hurting them pretty hard, because they had franchisees that popped down in there. But that's not what really blew up the company or ended the company as a corporation. The same thing that hurt the Chicago company hurt this company before I'd gotten ownership in it, in my opinion. And this is just my opinion. I'm just one dude. I'm not a psychologist or anything. But I think it's a neat case study because it was a good company and it was strong and it was financially sound, and then pride and ego got involved in all aspects, from the licensees, and it just, there was no more communication. It was talking at, not talking to. And I had no control over that part. My job was just to do what I was told to do in training and, you know, turning around stores and things of that nature. So I was around some of the franchisees, but I was not on the phone and in the room on every conversation by any means. That was a boat that was driven by the owners. And a lot of great relationships, a lot of money was made. It was really interesting because Mr. B was a sound businessman and he had sound principles. Whether you were booming or you were shutting your store down, he could help you make money, but you had to listen. And he didn't yell and he didn't talk loud, and you just had to listen. And there was wisdoms in what he did. I knew of a couple stores that shut down that Mr. B did some closeouts, and they made a considerable amount of monies doing that. And that was wisdom. And it was wisdom from the licensee to be able to listen even in tough times. And he made a lot of money that was able to, you know, springboard him, I'm sure, into other things in life. And that man is doing very well today in North Carolina and owns cabins galore, and neat fella, and was a vibrant man. And he used to always ask me, because I stayed with the corporation side for so long, and he used to ask me, he goes, Brett, why? He goes, why don't you just go out on your own? And I think that was the same weakness that I dealt with in the final 2 to 3 years, because the corporation could have kept going on a little bit longer. I mean, it's still here, but it will not be the capacity that it was. You're always going to be here. They didn't even know you were a 4 behind me. They thought you were an extra large, backwards. Shut up. Listen, you can turn off. I mean, if you don't like him, it's okay. And if it's me, y'all are rude. Y'all need Jesus. If it's me, you need Jesus. I got to chuckle. You know, uncertainty can be a scary place. If you allow it. If I allow it. So how do I not allow it? And like Sons of Legion say, I'll post the song Angels. You know, we're always looking above and help, and I think that's a beautiful thing to call out to a, you know, power greater than myself. But sometimes it's human. I have not had many burning bush experiences, but I've certainly had a lot of humans make a huge difference in my life. Some absolutely life-saving in business, and probably even life-saving in personal life. Men that were willing to tell me things even if I wasn't going to agree with it or accept it at that moment or like it. They didn't care about my feelings. And I was blessed to have that in my life from an early age. I mean, you know, my dad was a very direct man. There was love in him, but he'd tell you like it was, and I enjoyed that. I needed that. But the world isn't always ready for that. Direct conversation nowadays is shunned. That's why I talked to Fourman. Fourman doesn't mind it. I wish I could tell you I was drinking something or that I'm on something or that I've smoked something, but I'm just on water and Jesus. And emotions. And so what do you do with them? Because I can make a lot of mistakes if I allow emotions to run me. So I got a process that I use, and it includes humans. It includes pen to paper. It includes knowing the proper place to use my self-will, because I'm a stubborn son of a bitch. And I didn't always have it pointed in the right direction. And I got with some guys who none of this was learned by me. It was taught. And that keeps me at a very elementary state. It doesn't allow my ego to bump past, because I keep reminding it that you were taught. You didn't learn nothing. It works for me. I don't know what works for you. But when I wake up in the morning, I know who taught me what. And there's an honor in that, in carrying that message forward. That's a lot about what this podcast is about, what anything I do in business is about. And it was taught to me to reach out to the next, to not worry about the finances, to only take care of my part, and then to be willing to live with whatever the consequences are or whatever the outcome is, whether it be handing a key in or getting a new key. Can I have the same emotional strength and steadiness in both aspects? Have not been perfect at it. When I first found out, there was a wave of panic and the warmth in the belly when you have gotten news. And then I processed. What was my part? Action plans, all the things that were taught to me by men today and Mr. B and people that I'd been around and watched. And then you got to process, the L's. And are they wars? Have you lost the war? Have you lost the battle? Is it even a loss when the world sees it as a loss? Because, see, I buy into it very quickly. And I hear myself talking right now. And that's where my self-will kicks in. Because being a stubborn guy, it can get, or a girl, it can get you in a lot of trouble. Because especially if there's nothing to keep that ego down. You put stubbornness and ego together, and it is a formidable monster that will wreck my brain and will not allow me to process properly. But I can't spot it. I can spot it in you. I can spot it in Fourman. Yes, I can. You people just don't. You're not going to buy into Fourman, are you? I do, Bubs. Yes, sir. I don't care what they say. I don't care. You're going to be with me longer than they will. I love you, Fourman WoodFurn. Yeah. I know. I can't believe it either. But he believes it. So, did you know your mind cannot tell the difference between reality and fiction? Look it up. So that actually means that in low moments, I can actually program my brain to see it as an opportunity. I think that's where the meditation part in the big book, that Bible, comes from. Pray and meditate. My meditation isn't always, shoot, if I just want to live a miserable life, my meditation's on the problem, which is the A for me. The solution's the B. All the worries, the C. I want to go A to B. When you go A to C, then you got to build that thing back up. It makes a little triangle. If you take both those lines and you put them together, that's a lot of energy spent. And if I go A to B, it's a really short distance. And it gives me chances to yeah, I just flinched at y'all. Did you go back? It gives me opportunities to breathe in between. But when I'm using C, I'm gassed. It's like waves coming, and every time I come up, I'm just taking in salt water. If you're not on a beach, I can't help you. Use your own analogy. That's the best one I got. And I've felt that way before. I have come up for air and taken in water. And every time I've done that, when I've dissected it after the fact, because it's typically not during, self-reflection is really difficult during the chaos. Unless you've practiced it over and over and over in the little things. That, the attention to detail in life can prepare me so well for the chaos that comes. But if I just skip through life and think it's just an 80-year journey of how much I can collect, that's it. 80, 90 years, 100, if we get lucky and technology catches up. Well, you're going to live a lot longer. You're plastic. Yes, lively plastic, but plastic nevertheless. Yeah. There's got to be something bigger. And, for me, it comes in moments of dragging myself back into the now. And that's where I use my self-will. You thought I was going to forget about that. I told you I drift. So I take my self-will, my stubbornness, and my brain gets to be like a child. And it wants to run into the future and have a whole bunch of worry. And I snatch it by its collar and I bring it back into, no, sir, right now you're doing a podcast. Because I have other things to do. I have people that want me to call them. Not nicely. Not like the receiver. Woo. That receiver is a local accountant and neat. I'm going to pray for him. How about that? That's the best I can get out. What he did was unethical to me. Calling us when he washed what was owed to us a non or whatever, it's an honored debtor. We were not considered an honored debtor. And at a young age, I got to practice what I'd been practicing on a very small scale. And it was the attention to detail and the things that people thought I was just picking on. Why are you always on this little stuff and this little stuff and this little stuff and this little stuff? And this little... the Karate Kid. I mean, however corny we want to think it is, it's a great analogy. Wax on, wax off. And all of a sudden he started throwing punches. And yeah, they're goofy. And yeah, it's a movie. But the analogy's awesome. And I found it to be absolutely true in life. It's actually biblical. About doing the little things. We pick and choose that in that big book. I like that country song. Don't grab your Bible or else I'm going to get mine. Because if we just start throwing the Bible at everybody, well, who wins? Religion and all that. We study a whole bunch of it. And there's a golden rule in there that we all talk about. Doing to others as we would have them doing to us. I don't think I've made it a day. Not one whole day where I've been able to say, I can honestly say, I've treated everybody with the utmost respect. There may have been a day or two that was really close. But there was always something going on, and I just couldn't take it. And so life will just sit there and weather you and just keep beating on it. Some people, man, I just watch them just skyrocket. And I go, am I missing what they have? And I always look, and I've known some really successful people. I go, what do they have that I'm missing? I think the biggest for me is my inability to cut ties with people, and mainly people that are very honest in their actions and tell me what they really believe in their actions. And I just won't believe it because I just can't quit. And there's a time. There's a time to fight. There's a time to dance. There's a time to sing. There's a time to cry. It's in the Bible. I'll put the Bible first. And I don't know that I have the discernment for when all that is. I think I'm learning. And I think I learn through the pain because I don't want to repeat anything twice. Now, I've made some mistakes in business, but I've also made some really good moves. To come from where I came from and to be where I am, there were some very strategic moves that were done, and they weren't through my brilliance. It was through the ability and the willingness to listen to others and guidance and intuitive thoughts. And if I can't let other people challenge my ideas, how sound are my ideas? How far have we gotten in this world that my truth is my truth? I don't want to have my truth my truth. I don't trust this brain and the truth that it comes up with. I don't want to. I want to dumb it down. I want to not trust me, and I want people to challenge my thoughts. Didn't say I like it. But I always find that stuff that I don't like to do is often what I need to do. For you have been very special in my life. Did you hear that car fly by? You have stood over and watched powerful men and women work in our store, do powerful things in our stores, grow to bigger and better things. We've helped a lot of people. And we fought a lot. There's been a lot of wars. Shoot, when corporate went away, there were some manufacturers that wouldn't sell to me because I was part of the big corporate. And I was not seen as somebody who the other people that had the same name wanted to deal with. And so they pushed a little bit, and this one guy who built some stuff told me he was going out of business, and he was not. And I'd known that guy for decades. You know, I didn't take it personal. Was I hot? Yeah, initially. But then I realized that all I can do is the next right thing. And what that was to find somebody else to build me bookcases. He survived and I survived. And now a new chapter begins. But I think the cool thing was the lessons that I learned as a young man allowed me the ability to start building another boat in 2015, right? So that's 10 years. Now, I didn't get to lay you down exactly the way I wanted, but I don't think you ever get the endings that we want, huh? What I think of the most are those that came before me, and the faces of the greatest sales I ever made, which were not dollar-wise. My greatest sale I ever made was a young man in Tampa, and he came into the store, and he was mulatto and well kept, but you could tell they didn't have a lot of money. It was pretty obvious. And they were looking for not scratch and dents, And it was back to school. This was late 90s, early 2000s. We were still handwriting our tickets on three-ply copy paper. And he was looking around the store, and although we were inexpensive, it was real wood, and it was more than they wanted. And I happened to be in the store, and I always jumped on the floor, and I got, especially young people, I have a passion for them, and so I got talking to the mom a little bit and found out what they were looking for, and we had some desks, and that probably would have been close, and maybe she could have afforded it, but they were really looking for great value, and I thought of something. We had a couple 2-drawer files in the back that had been beat up a little bit, like happens in anything, shrinkage in retail. And then we had a hollow wooden door in the back that we weren't using, that we had taken down or something. And I showed him how it would fit on there and how to screw it together, and he could then make whatever size desk he wanted. I think the sale was like it was under $200. And I kept that receipt in my visor for times when I was talking to customers that were like chewing me out or saying I'm unethical or saying that I'm Satan's spawn, or you people are nasty to retailers. Y'all are nasty. You need to be nice, damn it. Because I'm the wrong one. I have a small business. It was stupid. Now, if I'm wrong, I'll own it. But if you're just being a butthead, I can tell you some stories. I'm not it. Listen, I sleep very well at night. Not perfection by any means, especially this last half and me delegating the task, and I didn't pay attention to the responsibility of it, and I paid for it. But it will be dug out of. And so I've had to start some new ventures a little bit faster, and there's not a lot of fear for me, because what comes will come. I think my self-will and dragging me into the now and the moment that I am, and not the past and Fourman. And I mean, I love to look back to learn, but not look back with regrets. That's not my part. Not unless I'm looking at them to learn from them. If I'm looking at them just to have an emotional, or there becomes, not even I want to, but there becomes an emotional moments, then I have to be careful for me. Because I get very dangerous with emotions. I don't process as well when I have those emotions, and I don't have anybody to run them through. I'm okay to have emotions and to have passion. There's a big difference in emotion and passion. Mine gets, me personally, mine gets read wrong often. And sometimes I'm the one reading it wrong. Sometimes I think it's passion and it's emotion. That's not always the greatest emotion. But it has been a fuel for me for so long that I have to be careful. I have to be diligent with the energy that I use and the direction that it goes. The next chapter is unclear. It has a lot to do with this, not necessarily the podcast, but a lot of this equipment and everything. There's another company coming, and there's this business, the vintage business and the roofing business, and there are absolutely opportunities to grind and to grow, and I'm excited about that. The loss was foreseeable, and so it doesn't hurt quite as much. Did I do you justice? Did I honor the name to the best of my abilities? Yes, 100%. And if someone can say that, you get to say goodnight in a very sweet way. Good night, Mr. Fourman. It was an honor to run with you. You were a champ in every aspect. You stood with ethics and morals, and you'll forever be in my family. I've learned lessons from a child up about diligence, about grinding, about never giving up, about owning your shit, making adjustments, moving forward through, not to. Because sometimes I didn't even know where I was going other than to take care of the next customer. And that was living in the now. And that carried us a long way, put a lot of kids through college, had a lot of happy families. So you rest well. Y'all enjoy this or don't. There only knows if y'all are going to be sending out people that are going to take me to another place and try to put me in a straitjacket that has a lot of buckles. Do you know they put me in one time and I actually think I could have gotten out? I'm just saying. See y'all on episode 38. Foreman, I love you.
Grinding all day, you know it's game on. My skin is thick, yes, tough. Running, yeah, we stay alive. Ain't gotta look nowhere else. All of this greatness inside.
And just like that, we're outie. See ya. Wrong button. I want to hit stop recording.